You're just a convenience until I get my green card, my wife admitted. I smiled, wished her luck, and called immigration to withdraw my sponsorship. Her boyfriend deported himself, and now she's begging me to reconsider. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The scent of garlic and soy sauce filled our apartment, a fragrance I'd come to associate with home. Her home, Manila, was thousands of miles away, but for 2 years, I believed I'd become her home. The chicken adobo, my Tita Rosa's recipe, was simmering on the stove. I'd set the table with the nice plates, the ones we'd registered for just a year ago. A single candle flickered between the placemats. It was a celebration. 1 year ago today, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services had accepted our adjustment of status application. The conditional green card was in sight. Permanence was just 1 more year of proving our life was real. I heard the key scrape in the lock, the familiar sound that always sparked a little jolt of happiness in my chest. Tonight, the jolt felt more like a nervous flutter. In here, lab, I called out, using the term of endearment she'd taught me. Lena walked in, dropping her work bag by the door with a heavy thud. She looked beautiful, always did, her dark hair falling around her shoulders. But her expression was closed, her phone a permanent extension of her hand. She didn't come to kiss me hello. She didn't even look at the table. Something smells good, she said, her voice flat, devoid of its usual melodic lilt. It's the adobo. For our anniversary. I tried to keep my tone light, but a cold knot was already forming in my stomach. 1 year since USCIS gave us the thumbs up. We're on the home stretch. She finally looked at me, and her eyes weren't soft with shared accomplishment or affection. They were distant, calculating. Actually, Mark, we need to talk. The knot tightened. Okay, about what? Work trouble. I forced a chuckle. Did your boss finally realize you're running the whole place? No. She pulled out a chair and sat, gesturing vaguely for me to do the same. I stayed standing, leaning against the counter. The granite felt solid, safe. This, she gestured between us, a swift, dismissive flick of her wrist. This has been a very convenient arrangement. The words didn't compute at first. They were just noises, crashing against the warm, garlic-scented reality of our kitchen. Arrangement? You mean our marriage? A small, pitying smile touched her lips. It was the cruelest expression I'd ever seen on her face. Don't be naive. Did you really think a girl like me would end up with a guy like you if there wasn't something major in it for me? A guy like me. The phrase hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Stable, reliable, boring. You were the safest, most stable option, she continued, her tone as matter-of-fact as if she were reviewing a business plan. A U.S. citizen with a good job, no drama. You were a convenience until I get my green card. Nothing more. The floor seemed to tilt. I gripped the counter behind me, the edge biting into my palm. The pain was a welcome anchor. What are you saying? I'm in love with Marco. Marco. The name was a physical blow. A guy from her yoga class. I'd met him once at a party. All smarmy charm and a flashy watch that probably cost 3 months of my mortgage. He was on an H-1B visa, always talking about the stress of sponsorship. I have been for 6 months, she added, and there was no remorse, only a defiant gleam. Once my status is secure, we can be together properly. His visa situation is so precarious. This was just easier. I looked at her, at the woman I'd vowed to build a life with, whose family I'd met over grainy video calls, whose dreams I'd listened to late into the night. I believed in her, in us, and the entire time, I was just a box to be checked. A reliable, stable, convenient stepping stone. The pain was a live wire, sizzling through my veins, but something else was rising to meet it, a profound, terrifying calm. The kind that descends when you finally see the monster in the room for what it is, and all that's left is to walk away. I pushed off from the counter. My hands weren't shaking. My voice, when it came, was steady. I see. She seemed surprised by my reaction. She'd expected tears, begging, drama. My calm compliance was throwing off her script. So, you understand? We can be adults about this. We can still be friends. You'll still see the sponsorship through, right? Her voice took on a wheedling tone. It would be so cruel and petty not to. And I've heard it can get the sponsor in trouble, too, if you back out. I looked down at my left hand, at the simple platinum band I still wore. I slowly twisted it off. The skin underneath was pale, a permanent imprint of a promise that had been a lie. I placed the ring on the cool granite with a soft, final click. "I'll take that under advisement," I said, my tone neutral, detached. I walked past her, out of the kitchen. "Good luck with Marco." I went to the bedroom and pulled my old duffel bag from the top of the closet. I didn't need much. Passport, social security card, the folder with all our immigration paperwork, my copies, a few changes of clothes, my laptop, my hard drives, the small, lockable box containing my grandfather's watch and a few other heirlooms. I moved with an efficiency that felt robotic, each item packed a deliberate step away from the life I'd thought I had. She appeared in the doorway, watching me, her arms crossed. The smug certainty was back. "You'll calm down in a few days. You always do. Where will you even go?" I zipped the bag closed and hoisted it over my shoulder. It was heavier than I expected. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but a vast, empty space. The love was just gone, extinguished the moment she revealed it had never been real. "That's no longer your concern," I said. I walked past her, through the living room, past the table set for an anniversary dinner that would never happen. I didn't look at the adobo growing cold on the stove. I didn't look back at her. I opened the front door and stepped out into the hallway, pulling it shut behind me with a quiet, final click. The hallway was silent and sterile. My car was in the parking garage. I got in, placed the duffel bag on the passenger seat, and started the engine. I didn't have a destination. A hotel, for now. But as I pulled out onto the street, the cool night air washing over me through the open window, I felt it. Not the crushing weight of heartbreak, but the terrifying, exhilarating freedom of a man who has just discovered the prison door was never locked. He'd just never thought to try the handle. The hotel room smelled of bleach and stale air. I'd chosen a generic chain near the airport, a place of transient anonymity. There were no photos on the walls, no personal touches. It was the perfect antithesis of the home I'd just left. The duffel bag sat by the door like a patient bomb. I didn't sleep. I sat at the cheap laminate desk, my laptop glowing in the dark room. The pain was there, a deep, throbbing ache, but I refused to give it space. Instead, I channeled everything into a cold, focused efficiency. I was a developer troubleshooting a critical system failure. The system was my life. The bug was Lena. By 8 a.m., I had a list. Priority 1, legal counsel. I found a firm that specialized in immigration law, with a specific focus on petitioner withdrawals. The website was stark and professional, no comforting platitudes. Perfect. The lawyer's name was Ms. Evans. Her voice on the phone was like crushed gravel, devoid of sympathy and rich with competence. I laid out the facts as if reading from an incident report. Marriage date, I-130 filing date, I-485 pending. Subject's admission of fraud for the purpose of evading immigration laws. Date and time of admission. She stated I was a convenience until she got her green card, and that she is in a relationship with another man, one Marco Rossi, with the intent to marry him upon receipt of her permanent residency. I recited, my voice flat. "Do you have evidence of this admission? A recording? A text?" Ms. Evans asked. "I have a contemporaneous written record I made immediately after the conversation, and I can attest to it under penalty of perjury. The other man is known to me. His visa status is H-1B. That's sufficient to establish a credible basis for withdrawal based on fraud. You understand that by withdrawing the I-130, you are pulling the foundation out from under her entire application? Her work authorization will be revoked. She will be placed in removal proceedings. I understand, and you're prepared to do this." I looked at the blank hotel wall. I am. The paperwork was digital. For my 130 withdrawal of petition. It was a simple PDF. A few fields to fill out. Our names, my alien number, the receipt number of the petition, the reason for withdrawal. The beneficiary admitted to entering into the marriage in bad faith, with the sole intention of circumventing U.S. immigration laws. I typed the words without a tremor in my hands. They were just facts. I attached a signed, notarized affidavit detailing the conversation. Then I uploaded it to the USCIS portal for our specific case. A confirmation email appeared in my inbox moments later. "Your submission has been received." It was done. With a few clicks, I had not just ended a marriage. I had initiated the unraveling of a life. I spent the next week in that sterile bubble. I found a short-term furnished apartment and moved in. I went to work. I coded. I went to the gym until my muscles burned and my mind was blank. I was a ghost, methodically severing ties. I changed my mailing address with the post office. I closed the joint credit card account, absorbing the remaining balance onto my personal one to avoid any future argument. I was tidying up loose ends. The first call came 8 days after I'd left. I was eating a bland takeout salad when my phone vibrated. Lena's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. I said nothing. Her voice was a tight wire of panic. "Mark, what did you do?" I remained silent. "I got a notice from USCIS. A notice of intent to deny. It says the petition has been withdrawn." "What does that mean?" "It means what it says," I said, my tone even. I withdrew the petition. There was a sharp intake of breath, followed by a string of frantic words. "You can't do that. You'll ruin my life. My work authorization, they'll take it away. My job. Mark, you have to fix this." "You made your choices, Lena," I said, the words cool and final. "Now you live with the consequences." I ended the call and placed the phone face down on the table. The silence that returned was profound. I took another bite of my salad. It still tasted like nothing, but for the first time, I felt a sense of something resembling peace. It wasn't satisfaction. It was the quiet assurance of a necessary task, completed. The system was responding to my commands. The first domino had fallen. The silence in my new apartment was a tangible thing. I'd traded the curated warmth of her place for this clean, sparse efficiency. White walls, a functional sofa, a desk with my monitors. It was a canvas, wiped clean of her. I found I preferred the silence to the sound of a lie. The karma, as they call it, did not arrive with thunder. It came through the sterile, bureaucratic channels I had set in motion, each one a ratchet tightening the vice. It began with a text. Not a call this time. A block of text, sent at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Lena, my EAD was revoked. HR called me into a meeting and terminated me effective immediately. They escorted me out of the building, Mark. Like a criminal. I had to hand in my badge. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" I read it once. The employment authorization document, the little card that let her work, the very thing that had given her the independence to mock my convenience, was now a useless piece of plastic. I didn't reply. I placed the phone back on my desk and finished compiling a line of code. The system booted up without errors. Satisfying. The next call came a week later. This one was different. The panic had curdled into pure, undiluted fear. Her voice was thin, reedy. "Mark, please. You have to answer. I'm listening. It's Marco." A choked sob echoed down the line. He blocked me. Everywhere. His number, Instagram, everything. I went by his apartment, and his roommate said he transferred to their office in Dallas. He just left. I could almost see it. Marco, the exciting H1 beholder, seeing the flashing red lights of a failing immigration case next to his name. He wouldn't risk his own precarious status by being associated with her. He had cut the anchor loose to save his own ship. "He used me," she whispered, the realization dawning in real time. "He was just using me until he found a better path." "The irony isn't lost on me," I said, my voice calm. "This isn't a joke," she shrieked, the sound tearing through the phone's speaker. "I have nothing. My life is over. Your life here, perhaps," I corrected, with the detached air of a news anchor stating a fact. "You should start making arrangements." The third act of her tragedy arrived in a pale yellow envelope. She called me, and this time, there were no tears. Just a hollow, stunned terror. "They've scheduled my hearing," she said, the words barely audible. "I got a notice to appear. In immigration court. For removal proceedings." There it was. The final, official term. Removal. Deportation. The concrete consequence of her convenient arrangement. The calls from her friends started then. The flying monkeys, sent to guilt the wizard into reversing his spell. First, Qley, her best friend, her voice slick with false sympathy. "Mark, come on. You know Lena. She makes mistakes. She's dramatic. But this is destroying her. You can't just throw her to the wolves like this." I didn't throw her to the wolves. I replied, my tone even and firm. She walked into the den herself and is surprised the wolves are there. I'm just refusing to go in after her. Be a man. Forgive her. Goodbye, Qley. I blocked the number. Then her cousin, more aggressive. Do you know what you're doing to her family? The shame you're bringing on them? She's crying every day. You're a monster. She didn't seem to care about shame or family when she was planning her future with Marco, I stated. Her emotional state is a consequence of her actions, not mine. You cold bastard. Click. Blocked. Her texts to me became a log of her spiraling desperation, shifting from blame to begging, a complete erosion of the smug woman from the kitchen. Lena, you were right about everything. About Marco. About everything. Lena, he was a user, but you're a good man. A real man. I was blind. Lena, I'm facing deportation, Mark. Do you understand what that means? My whole future is gone. Please. I read each one. I felt nothing. No schadenfreude, no pity. Just the quiet acknowledgement of cause and effect. She had treated our life like a temporary contract. I had simply accepted her termination of it. I stood and walked to the window of my quiet apartment, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, she was drowning in the consequences she had set in motion. And I, on my dry, stable ground, felt the first true sense of peace since I'd heard the key in the lock that final night. The system was working exactly as designed. The request for a meeting came via email. It was a shockingly formal method, given the hysteria of her recent texts. The subject line was simply, please. The body of the email was a masterclass in manipulative framing, not an apology, but a plea framed as my last chance to be a hero. Mark, I know I have no right to ask for anything. But I am begging you, as someone I once cared for, to meet me. One last conversation. There are things that need to be said face to face. I'll be at the Grind Coffee Shop on Elm Street tomorrow at 10 a.m. Please. I didn't reply, but at 9:55 the next morning, I walked into the coffee shop. I saw it as the final system shut down. The last line of code to be written before the project could be archived and forgotten. She was already there, sitting at a small table in the corner. She looked diminished. The vibrant, mocking woman from our kitchen was gone, replaced by a gaunt, nervous figure. Her clothes were rumpled, and her eyes darted around the room before landing on me. There was a desperate hope in them that immediately hardened into calculation when she saw my expression. I sat down, placing my phone on the table. I had set a timer for 20 minutes. You came, she said, her voice a fragile thing. I said I would listen, I replied. What do you need, Lena? I have a meeting at 10:30. The formality threw her. She'd expected anger, or maybe a flicker of softness. Not this professional detachment. You look good, she tried, a weak attempt to establish intimacy. Thank you. I've been focusing on my health. A long silence hung between us, filled by the hiss of the espresso machine. She fidgeted with her paper cup. They're deporting me in 30 days, she finally blurted out, the words bursting forth as if she could no longer contain them. My final appeal was denied. There's nothing left. I'm aware of the timeline, I said. Her eyes widened. You're my only hope. If we went to the immigration court together, if we told them we're reconciling, that it was all a big misunderstanding, they could reopen the case. We could fix this. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw only a liability. A poorly written line of code that was causing a fatal system error. I will not commit immigration fraud for you, I stated, my voice low and absolute. The plea in her eyes vanished, replaced by a flash of raw fury. Don't you have any feelings left for me? Any at all, she demanded, her voice rising. We were married. We shared a life. I leaned back, my posture relaxed but unyielding. I feel the same way about you that you claim to feel about me. You are no longer relevant to my future. It was the truth, delivered without malice. And that truth, its sheer, unassailable indifference, broke her completely. She slammed her hand on the table, making the cups rattle. Several people looked over. You're enjoying this, she spat, her face contorted with a rage I'd never seen. You're a cold, pathetic little man, and you're enjoying watching me suffer. You always were weak, and this is your weak, petty revenge. I didn't flinch. I simply watched her, my expression unchanged. Her outburst was just error messages flashing on a screen before a shutdown. I stood up, taking my wallet from my pocket. I pulled out a $10 bill and placed it neatly under my untouched cup. "The coffee is on me," I said. I looked at her one last time, this stranger who had tried to build her life on the foundation of my good faith. "I'm not enjoying it, Lena. I'm indifferent. And that's the real tragedy for you, isn't it? That you became so insignificant to me that I can watch you face the consequences of your own actions and feel absolutely nothing." I turned and walked out of the coffee shop. The morning sun was warm on my face. I didn't look back. I got into my car, and the silence within was profound. Not the silence of loneliness I'd felt in the hotel, but a deep, resonant silence of peace. It was the sound of a chapter closed, a contract voided, a system finally, perfectly, and permanently free of malware. I started the engine and pulled into the traffic, heading toward a future she had deemed herself too good for, and that I now owned completely. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.